This broadcast of In Focus is being made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you.
Good evening and welcome to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WCTV Channel 11. I'm not Phil D'Amico and I'm not president of the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce. Phil was going to host this show. I was taking a few nights off, but Phil ended up having some issues. He will be back hopefully on the 27th of June. I think we've got him slated to host another show, so his hosting duties are not done. I want to thank Reed Health for sponsoring this particular show, as they have given us a great deal of support to not only In Focus, but obviously the program that we do with Chef Dugan Wetzel and nutritionist Jennifer Stockler, I Heart Cooking, which we will be doing in the park. You'll hear more about that coming up in July. We'll be doing a taping there with Mayor Dave Snow as one of the guests. Also, Sherry Harlan hosts Read Beside You, which is a program that will be on WETV Channel 20 later on this evening. And want to remind you that one of their big events really that helps a lot in the community is the Read Ride. That's coming up July 22nd. Check out readride.org for more information on that, because one, it does great things as far as providing tennis shoes to a number of young people in the area. And secondly, find out some information, because with all of the construction going on in the area, that route has changed. You're used to the Reed Ride route. That route is not the same this year. Obviously, the Orange Barrels have made a number of changes, and that's one of them. So July 22nd, coming up, the Reed Ride. Registration is open. You can go to readride.org for that information. We are going to be having a conversation this evening in 3 segments. That's how Phil laid it out, so that's how I'll go with it. Daryl Gordon, who's with Wernley Youth and Family Treatment Center, is our first guest. We'll be joined later by Rob Tidrow and Professor Tim Scales. And then later on, we'll be talking with Melissa Vance from the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce about some of the things that they have coming up. Imagine, Phil was doing a show and including the chamber. Shameful. Shameless plug. Daryl, how are you?
I'm outstanding, Eric.
It's
Thanks for
good to
having
have
me.
you here.
Thanks for having me.
We were talking beforehand, and I knew that you had been at Wernley for at least 10 years. You're telling me you're there 15 now.
15 years, yes.
That's a lot of changes that have taken place during that time at that organization. And one of the things we talked about is some people I know aren't really sure what to call it. Wernley Children's Home is the name that had been there for a while. Yes. Wernley Youth and Family Treatment Center. Talk a little bit about what the name change means and how it affects what you all are doing.
You know, you think about, Wernley being around almost 140 years, and, being a Lutheran orphanage, many of those hundreds, a century or so. It was a children's home for orphan young men and women. And many of the folks around the state of Indiana, Ohio, the kids would migrate to Wernley Children's Home. And that's where they would stay for many years and plow the grounds. And as time progressed, the orphanage sort of took a back seat to residential facilities, where you begin to provide treatment for young men and women that were abused, neglected, or abandoned. And that's where, we came into play. And we didn't just have a residential facility, but we had a residential treatment facility. So our focus wasn't on Lutheran children any longer. We were focusing on all children. And as we looked at that model, there are so many kids in need of services. Unfortunately, there are kids that have been physically, mentally, sexually abused, and there is treatment modalities that need to be addressed. And we tried to provide that with our staff of 170 plus that are focused on the transformation of those folks. So when you talk about the transformation of the name, from a children's home where kids actually live there to now a treatment facility where kids are there for 9 months on average, and the objective is to reunite them back with their respective families. So we realized, you know, the name is no longer indicative of what we do. We really need to focus our attention on a name that really exemplifies the very essence of what Warrenly does, and that is we provide treatment as a center for families and individuals that are in need of our services.
What first brought you to Warrenly? What made that connection for you?
You know, I was during the time I was doing some legal work at the NCAA, and this opportunity came about where they were looking for a CEO. And during my time, I came, and so I said, just come and interview. And I remember I was one of, I think I was the 4th CEO there in maybe 2 years or 3 years, and that was coming in. And I realized what happened prior to. But when I arrived on campus, I was just so moved. And I was moved spiritually, I was moved physically, I was moved with the presence and the ambiance of the 100-acre campus, and just how beautiful it looked, and the potential that existed within that facility. And you know, having a high spiritual presence in myself, I felt the need to want to make change. And that's how I live my life, about changing, and I felt like I can really change this organization. And understanding that, you know, everything I've done it in a way that was spiritually minded, and you know, going to Notre Dame, and you know, a Catholic institution, you know, raising with my mother, who was every day, every night, going to church. Right? It's interesting how my life has followed me, and find myself at a Lutheran facility, and it was a calling. It really was, Eric, a calling. Where, you know, financially we weren't in really good shape, right. And operationally we weren't in really good shape, and the facilities were very, very antiquated. But we were known for doing great work throughout the state of Indiana, Ohio, and I just felt like I could help. And I thought, you know, after being there on I remember my first interview, and the kids were just, you know, 15 years ago, right? Kids were just running up, and you know, it was during time I was just maybe finishing up my Notre Dame career a little bit after that. So they still remember that, and it just moved me that, you know, regardless of what was going on in their life, they still admired things, and I felt like I could help.
That connection to the church is still there. It's not a Lutheran orphanage, but there is still a connection to the Lutheran church.
Unequivocally, we are affiliated with the Lutheran Church and Lutherans. Services of America, as well as the ELCA and AMCA. So we are still affiliated with the churches, and that's how we operate under those bylaws and expectations.
You mentioned obviously your connection to Notre Dame, which has translated to a certain extent in your ability to help raise funds and make people more aware of your organization. Talk a little bit about how those connections have helped begin the transformation and make some of the changes that you saw and wanted to make in the facility.
Yeah, interesting. You know, Notre Dame had an integral part in the transformation of Warrenly, and you know, I know in the beginning, you know, I realized, you know, we really need to develop a department that could really raise funds, and many of our colleagues in the state didn't have strong development departments, and because the dollars and per diems we were receiving for the services wasn't really enough to provide the quality service that we were looking for, I realized we really need to have another arm of revenue. And as such, we started focusing our attention on fundraising opportunities. And one was, and we were getting support from the Lutheran churches, but it wasn't significant. And we were getting some support from the community, but again, wasn't significant. And because of our expectations, we were in a community that we weren't talked about a lot, you know, because we were supposed to be kept in this corner, and HIPAA expectations and bylaws, and you couldn't share a lot about what the kids were doing or what type of kids were there. And I didn't feel that the great work that was going on needed to be shared. So we really focused our attention on developing a golf outing, which was head up by, you know, starting with Dale Harris and many of our community leaders, to Mike Bray, head coach, and we call it Coaches for Kids golf outing, and we just brought coaches from all over to head up this fundraising affair. And the other, and our signature probably event was a Catalyst for Change, and that has evolved over the years, where we started it at the country club there, and the first person I remember bringing, because I said, we really got to find a way to raise additional funds, and because our bottom lines were in the negatives, and we just really needed to figure out how we were going to address that need. And I remember watching Regis Philman, and I remember him saying, "Ever need anything?" This was during my time, and probably thought I'd never call on him. He said, "Ever need anything, you just let me know."
Careful what you say.
Yeah, and I remember calling and said, "I really need you." And he was the first national honoree that we brought on board to help in this movement. And then from there, people followed, from Jerome Bettis to Nicholas Sparks to Tim Brown, Joe Montana, last year Mike Golick, and just a bunch of Lou Holtz, just a bunch of great folks that have believe in what we do, and just believe in the work that we're doing, and realize, if you need us, you let us know. And they come for free, and they realize the value that they bring for our organization and for our kids. And Notre Dame's been just crucial in that. And then the donors have been extremely supportive of our mission and what we've been trying to accomplish at that organization. So we just embarked upon a campaign, and again, a lot of our donors from the community has been crucial, but the Notre Dame family has been crucial too, or we would have never been able to accomplish it with all of those integral parties and the Lutheran churches.
You said that you needed to make some changes. You saw an organization that had been doing great work, negative financially, needed to make some changes. Some of those changes you've been able to make. You've opened a number of buildings on that facility. You've got a lot of space to add some buildings. You just did a groundbreaking last week for another building change.
Yeah, I mean, you really think about our organization and where we've been. A lot of our facilities were just antiquated, right? Mm-hmm. And we couldn't provide the quality care that we wanted to. And there was three things that I wanted to accomplish. One was I wanted to enhance the spiritual environment of our organization. I wanted to make sure that when kids got there, that there was a spiritual presence. Two, we had to have quality staff to produce quality programming, and we looked and searched and continue to look for those great folks that have a commitment to the transformation of our young men and women that are on our respective campus. And our third was, once you got the quality programming, is we needed a quality environment. And it's interesting how when you have a quality environment, people operate differently and kids operate differently. And you place them in a home that is dysfunctional, they will act dysfunctional. If you place them in a nice environment, it's interesting how they keep the place nice. And with our new facilities, it really helped in their treatment because now they're in a place that they felt comfortable, more comfortable than when they left their own homes, places that they could call home. And that was our objective, to ensure that those three points was accomplished through the vision. So it took some time. We just finished a $10 million campaign. We got 3 residential units that have been placed up, which really expanded our census. We are replacing some older units. Also, that great building on the hill, right? That is the lighthouse of what we do and what everybody notices us to be is that great. Very
noticeable as you drive up the street.
That's right. That's the children's home, right? And understanding that we are embarking upon a brand new administration building that's going to allow us to really operate more effectively and efficiently as we move forward.
We've got some shots of what that should look like. That's going to be a change from that big house up on the hill.
And you also talk about recruiting quality staff too. And so often I remember coming from the NCAA, and we were right there on the canal, and the city just built that new state-of-the-art Hall of Champions, facility, and it was just beautiful, right? And I remember coming to Warrenly, and they said, "Well, this is going to be the office." And at first, you're used to being in a different environment, but again, I understood that there was a vision and mission that I wanted to do for this organization, and one was to make sure that all of our facilities were up to par, so that we could compete and be one of the best residential facilities in the country.
Because people don't know as much about Warrenly, I don't think they know the impact that you all have. First of all, and obviously you can't talk about individual, but what is the amount of staff that you have, and how many young people are you helping? How many young people do you have on campus at a given time?
It's interesting. I think when I got there, we might have started with 80 staff. I think today we're embarking on about 180 staff today. So it's a challenge just trying to hire staff that has a commitment to that population of kids, right? And understanding we're in an environment where we only have 35,000 in Richmond. So we really have to be aggressive and strategic as to how we hire those types of people. So that's been a huge movement, I think, for what we have done. The kids, as it relates to the number of kids that we serve, with our new facilities, will be somewhere around close to 100 kids that we would be able to serve at one time. We're comfortable at we'd be comfortable at about 80 kids. And throughout the year, we probably serve probably close to 200 kids, probably 300 with their families, part of that process. So we touch about 300 kids and their families throughout the year as they reside on our campus, some for 9 months, more or less, right around that respective area.
From how wide an area are most of your residents coming?
Yeah, interesting. Our kids probably cover the entire state of Indiana, parts of Ohio, and there are times when we are attracting kids from Illinois and Kentucky, but very few of those. But because we are so strategically located near Ohio, we're able to address that need in the Montgomery County, Cincinnati area, where there is a large population of kids that need treatment. And because of the great work we've been doing, they have been very open to providing quality care from our facilities. How
do most of your referrals come to you?
Yeah, interesting. They come through. We have a marketing team that goes out and meet with the counties, the 92 counties, with the judges, probation officers, DCS officers, and they have to make recommendations to the judicial system, the court system, to say, this gentleman does not need detention. This kid really needs treatment. And so often we find we placing these kids that have done some horrendous things. Unfortunately, it's not a result of them, it's a result of their environment, right? So if, in fact, Johnny doesn't know how to conduct himself in an environment, all he's done was sit on that block for 8 years, and he hasn't left that block for 8 years, and he saw everything happening around him on that block for 8 years. He's going to only do what he saw, and that's what we see. We're trying to undo that experience that he has of maybe seeing drugs, seeing abuse, seeing neglect, and they become part of it, right? So it's interesting. We would pick up kids, and we always take them somewhere to eat on the way in, and some of them have never been to McDonald's, don't know what to order, how to sit down. It's amazing how some of our children have been so unexposed to society and the work that we do. So again, we're just trying to help them reintegrate back into society.
What are your next steps as you obviously have accomplished some of the things you saw 15 years ago when you stepped in? Where do you see the next 10 or 15 going for the organization and yourself even?
That's good. I continually see us providing quality care, being sort of the Mayo Clinic. The vision has never been to have 200 units. It was always to be an organization that had a number of beds but more importantly, that we provided quality care, and that there would be a waiting list, which would exist today for those beds because of the quality care that we provide. So that has always been a vision that we continue to strive for, but also we want to make sure that all of our facilities and all of our units are state of the art. So when kids come, they feel like this is a place where I want to be, not where I have to be. And spiritually, we've moved forward with hiring a pastor that's full-time, that works with all of our churches, also works on our campus to continue to move that spiritual component progressively on our campus. So we'd like to continue to see that occur, and I like to see the community more involved. And since 15 years ago, they are so much more involved than they've ever been, and that's a blessing to see. We just want to see more and more of that as we grow.
Okay. We're going to take a break. You're going to stay with us for a little while.
Yeah.
We're going to bring in Rob Tidrow from Richmond Community Schools, Tim Scales from Indiana University East, kind of have a discussion. They work with kids also, so we'll have a little bit more discussion about kids as we continue with In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Life can sometimes be chaotic. And with small children, it can be difficult to get to the doctor.
Hi, Mrs. Mounds. How are you doing?
I have a sick little boy right here. I think he might have an ear infection.
With Read Health Now virtual visits, you don't even need to leave your home.
I'll send in a prescription for him.
Quick, easy, convenient.
I don't want to take the kids out today.
Oh, hey, Doc.
Read Health, right beside you, right now.
Hi, I'm Aaron Stevens, host of the Cuffs program, WGTV Channel 11. Stay tuned as Jim Harlan, Executive Director of the Wayne County Historical Museum, is our guest.
Approach it one collection at a time.
Again, that's the Cuffs program, WGTV Channel 11, 6 p.m. Wednesday evening.
At the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to invite you to join me for our next episode of Chamber Chat. We will be talking to our friends at Bell's Strawberry Farm and learning all about the farm tour, and then also heading out to Forest Park Health Campus and learning about some great things going on there. You won't want to miss it. Join me Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m.
And welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. Everybody's watching the little whatever it is flying around the studio. You only see it in the lights, though. I'm Eric Marsh, sitting in for Phil D'Amico, who was going to be hosting tonight. It was my night off, and that's okay. We're going to have Phil back, and he's going to have another show, but we're still going to talk some chamber things. Melissa Vance with the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce is going to join us for our last segment. Daryl Gordon, President and CEO of Wernley Youth and Family Treatment Center, is with us, being joined by Rob Tidrow from Richmond Community Schools,
Chief Operations Officer,
and Tim Scales, Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship here at Indiana University East. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Talking with Daryl about what Wernley does as far as helping some of our youth and what are termed at-risk youth to a certain extent, and that's a term that gets kind of tossed out there a little bit. So I would like just kind of to start, and this isn't one of those questions that's on the sheet, but give us your definition of what an at-risk youth is, as you all serve them in one way or the other. Tim's new in here, so we'll start with him on that end and work backwards.
Well, thank you. Thanks. I guess when I think about at-risk youth, I think of my program, the BOSS program, because when I developed that program, I developed it for youth. And I developed it for them to be able to take a look at it for whatever they want to do, develop a business plan, if you will. But at-risk youth, to me, is any youth, because basically we got to look at the youth and we're not sure what direction they're going to go. They've had pressure that said you've got to go to college, you've got to have a GPA of this, or you have to do this. That student has to have an opportunity to develop, to become themselves. They're at risk if they don't find something they connect with. It's not necessarily that they come from a poor environment or a rich environment. They come from the environment they come from. But once they become a youth, they're very, very, very fragile, in my opinion. And we got to make sure that, they get something that they connect with. And we can't connect it for them. They have to discover it. And that's why I leave my programs pretty open, because I think of all youth that I work with as at risk. We've got to connect. A disconnect will put them at risk.
Rob?
Boy, that's hard to follow up. But I think the key point there is that connectedness, whether it's with maybe a format in which they thrive in, maybe it's athletics, maybe it's some type of academics, maybe it's computer-based or technology or innovative strategies. But you need that connectedness. But you also need that connectedness with adults. We all need, 6 adults in our life to help us prosper. And that at-risk youth or any youth really needs that. And whether it's from a mentor, a minister, just a community member, or someone who takes the time to be with them, I think that's very important for our students. And Richmond Community Schools and other organizations do a great job of that, of trying to connect those kids that they see at most risk to connect them with somebody. So
You're around it a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting, Eric, because when you say at risk, it's interesting because we try to stay away from the stereotype of at risk, because we then place that individual in an environment which he believes he or she has to live in, right? And at risk, it sort of exemplifies a child that won't meet the true expectations that life has for them. That may be academics, athletics, spiritually, socially. All of those are at risk in our opinion. So we try never to call or define a child as at risk. Each child has the ability to be, a powerful individual, and it just depends on how we approach that individual. But if we call him that, then he or she will become that, right? So we try to prevent ourselves from even embarking on that environment.
So how do we start to empower our youth? You hear through news, through stories, that there are more pressures, more peer pressure, more social media pressure, more everything on our kids. So how do we empower them when home lives are not quite right, when the social pressures, the peer pressures are too much for them? How do the organizations, how do the programs provide them with what they need so that more of those kids are stable, not in the juvenile justice system, or not in detention, or not in alternative school necessarily? How does that look for us, and particularly in this community?
Well, what Richmond Schools does, we have wraparound services with communities in schools, Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club, community partners. Warrenly's part of this program. Just things that will help those kids that might be in more need, or maybe another adult has identified them for a different kind of need, to go into, maybe have personal counseling or go into their home, just to provide more support wherever that might be. But I think those wraparound services is very important. And also, we can't discount our teachers that are in the classroom that see them every day, because they can see those patterns developing. Maybe their grades are going to suffer. Maybe they come in and have a different attitude for a day, and it's kind of out of joint with them. And those teachers will be able to key right in and say, "There's something wrong with Tim today. There's something wrong with Daryl. I need to kind of watch that, see if that develops." But I think it's real important that someone watches every kid, kind of adopts them, if you will. So
does that put more pressure on teachers? Does that change how teachers learn? You think of a teacher as being a teacher, somebody who does this. Are we asking them to do that much more now, or too much more?
I think teachers, one of the strengths of teachers, and I was raised in a family with a teacher. He taught for 39 years and coached and so forth. The one key aspect is they're people persons. They like being around people, and they can detect patterns. So I don't think it adds more pressure to them. I think if you give those teachers a way to communicate that need back to, say, a counselor or to the principal or someone else in the community, I think that's where the teachers appreciate that, and it takes some of that pressure off. But I see that they see that patterns from the kids anyway. They just need a way to report that out maybe and follow it up. So.
Yeah. And I'm going to say in my programs, which the BOSS program, I've basically developed it to where it can be tailored to any place. And I've got the BOSS Technology, and BOSS International, and I've had it in several countries. And I can tell you that each place that I've worked at, it's been quite interesting to see it successful. And one of the things that I think is key is stability. Myself and the teachers, we work side by side with the students from beginning to end. We bring in guests. We bring in, guest speakers, and we may have somebody who comes in who works with art, and somebody else with technology, and somebody else with manufacturing. We expose those students to different things. We watch, we pay attention, we find out what connects with each student. And so each student gets a chance to be their self, which is what I want it to be, okay? But I also find at the end of the day, at the end of the week, and certainly at the end of the program, that stability in that time is myself and the teacher. And we're the person who's the comfort for them. And even beyond, 2, 3, 5 years out, I still have students and parents that come to me and acknowledge the program that the students went through. It does change their lives. I've had teachers come to me and say, hey, after the BOSS program, students have gone from a low GPA to a higher GPA. And I'll say, why? And they'll say, because somebody actually was able to reference the research they were doing and make sense of it. Because now they're doing the research that means something to them. It's not just go out and research this because, but now they're researching it because they have something they can relate it to. If I say you're going to have a location for your idea, and they go out and research 10 locations, find one they can afford, now they understand why they researched it. It made sense to them.
How do you make that connection between the student and the place? They talked about stability. You talked about your program being 9 months. And is that part of why that program has that length of time, so that you can develop that stability, that guidance that takes them through?
Unequivocally. When you talk about, let's use your word, at risk, right? And you said, why are these kids, how are we going to address these kids, right? How are we address those types of kids? I first understand that most of those kids that come to us, they've been traumatized one way or another. Something has occurred in their life that had caused them to put them on a very unorthodox trajectory, unfortunately. So our objective is to get deep and to understand what that trauma is, right? Because you can't do anything unless you can address first the issue, right? And whatever that child issue is abuse, neglect, abandonment, whatever that is, you got to get to the root of that cause of the problem. And once we kind of get there, we try to get there in an environment where he feels safe or she feels safe, right? So I'm not just addressing the trauma-informed care for this child. I'm also trying to put him in an environment where before he couldn't really sleep at night. Tonight, he feels comfortable where he lives. He feels safe where he lives. Thus, he's able to communicate better to us about what's going on in his life. And then I think the other piece is family. We may do a great job with the child, but we send them back to a dysfunctional environment at the end of the day, right? So our objective is listen, we got to serve both the family and the child. So we have apartments on campus where, free of charge, where they can come, stay for the weekend, and the only thing we ask, we'll feed you for free, we'll bring you there, we'll give you a place to stay, because believe it or not, there are parents that will say, I can't make it. I can't come and see my child this week. Or I can't come see my child for the month or two. And you wonder why the dysfunction's going on, right? But once they get there, we say, if you're coming, we at least ask that you're part of the treatment. So having family and child present and helping them to parent is interesting. You need all these license for dogs, but you can just have a child and not know how to parent, right? So I think when you say, how do you address it, I think it's twofold or threefold, if you will. It's addressing the trauma that the child has had. put them in an environment where he or she can excel so that they can excel academically, entrepreneurially, whatever that may be. But also, they got to be coming from stock that is enriching their lives so that they can be successful. You know, we all have that benefit of coming from strong families. You had a teacher in the home, right? And look what happened, right? And so what are these other kids that don't have that in their home? What's happening to them?
How does the school system help? I know there's always a push as much as possible in the school systems for parents to be more involved in their kids' lives. How do we make that connection? How do we make that happen, even on a community level to a certain extent? Because, you know, they say it takes a village and everybody wants to push back against that. But I think I hear you all saying it does take additional people to help do for our youth in general and for ourselves as a community.
Well, I think for any successful school is you have to be purposeful about it in many ways. Maybe your lead administrator in the building is always keeping the parents informed of activities, inviting them. I wouldn't say force, but get those parents there for some kind of enjoyment time. Some parents were not successful students, so they shy away from schools because that was a bad part of their life, or they don't see it as a successful part. So you have to kind of get them in and welcome them and say, this is part of you and your community and your student. So, you know, have weekly or monthly events where they come and gather, see success by their students, honor that. Some parents are actively engaged anyway, but I think you have to purposefully go about getting them in there. And many of all of our principals are very good at that, having those events and getting the word out, whether it's in the social media realm, maybe flyers, whatever's going to work for that particular family. Get them in there and make them so that when they come through those doors on those times, that they feel welcome and they feel energized for that student. And
that family connection is a part of your program, kids being proud of what they do, wanting to share that and wanting to bring those outside experiences home.
And I think it's interesting because I feel like the extended family often. And I'll give you two examples. One is I had two young men that was in my program in South Africa. I was back here for 6 months and I got a phone call, and it was from Culver Academy here in Indiana. They had brought 2 of the students to Culver for the summer, and they had requested that I come and be a part of their program. The kids requested it. And I did not realize that till I arrived. And so that made me feel very good that they felt that they had family here in Indiana, and that family was me. Another example was from Daryl and his organization. 2 years ago, I had the Summer Boss program at Wernley. And that week, we had several speakers in. We had several exercises we did with the students. You're never really sure if you're connecting. You want to. You feel like you are. And just 30 days ago, I was in an establishment here in Richmond, and a young man said, "You're Mr. Scales." And I said, "I am, but you call me Tim." And I knew I recognized him, but I had over 3,000 students through the BOSS program. And I said, "I know you've been through the BOSS program, but you're going to have to tell me which one, because it could have been any of the 9 counties. And he said, "Tim, I was with you at Wernley." And I said, "You're right, I remember now." I said, "How are you doing?" And he says, "I've graduated. I'm going to tech school. I've got an efficiency apartment, and things are great." Now, he was reaching out to me at that moment, the smile on his face and a smile on mine. Going forward, I plan to also make contact with him and ask him to be a part of my program, mentoring others, because just like I'm that person for him, he can be that person for somebody else. It'll help us both.
Where do we go as we try to move forward as a community? Because obviously this is a small community, smaller than even when I got here. So we can't afford to lose any of our youth. We want them to have a positive experience. What are the barriers in this community that you see to us being able to successfully do that? Grab, engage, cultivate, grow our young people. That's an interesting smile on your face.
I don't know what the solution is, but I think one aspect is when you go down a path like this, you just have to keep going at it. It's like the old running back. You just got to keep your feet moving. You might gain 1 yard, 5 yards, or you might break open, but you have to just keep your feet moving, and whatever that means. And whether it's a small council that goes on, like the Wayne County Foundation, things like that will just encourage people to stay connected. And I think having the business leaders, having the community leaders be aware that there are students, there are youngsters out there that need different kind of supports. I was very fortunate growing up. I didn't really need that many supporting pieces like that, but for those that have that opportunity to know that others need that, I think it's very important, and we just have to keep that message going out. So,
I was watching a school board meeting last night, and they were talking about the Boys and Girls Club at Fairview School and the success they've been having with the number of kids that they have in there.
It's great, and that's an expense. That is an expense, but I think it's a great expense for our students because it gives them a place to be. It gives them an opportunity to learn more after school, to have that leadership, to have that counseling from people that are there, and just to be together with other students outside of that school work time that they can communicate in a different way. So I think it's important.
As you've seen more engagement, and you mentioned more engagement from the community as a whole with Wernley, and you mentioned wanting more of that engagement. What do you think that begins to look like, considering some of the barriers that you have to worry about? You mentioned HIPAA laws and things of that nature. How does Wernley and the city make that closer connection to advance what you're doing?
It's always threefold, right? I think one is like, how do you help? I think it's your time, right? And folks just volunteering their time to help, and if it's in fundraising or if it's on our on-campus programming, just volunteering your time or your talents. You may be an accountant, you may be an attorney, you may be an entrepreneur, and your program may be able to help our children, right? Or you may be able to provide some of those resources that can help, or just your treasures, right? I mean, we don't operate for free. It costs to operate the organization, and it's an expensive proposition, but it's a very necessary proposition. So if somebody's talking about how do they help, it's one of those three areas. But I also think for this community, we have to commit ourselves to wanting to save our children, right? I tease a lot on it, but you talk about war and drugs, and to have a war on drugs, that means you're serious about solving that issue, right? And where are we from a community standpoint in committing ourselves to the children and what's happening to them? We see more of them are finding themselves on drugs or dropping out of school or don't have interest in the things that we all had interest when we were younger, right? So I think it's going to start with, talked about a village. I know that's cliche-ish, but
sure.
But because of all the laws that have been put in place, we've stepped back from trying to address the needs of kids in our own community or our next door neighbor. When we saw them doing things, we don't even talk about it. So I really think there needs to be a significant movement for this community to say we are committed to saving our children, and that's educational resources, that's Boys and Girls Clubs, that's Wernley's, that's entrepreneurial. They need things to do and need ways to continue to grow and prosper and grow their minds so they can be successful.
Okay, I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you go. How do you take the program that you have and your connection with you? I've been up in your office.
Right.
Any day you walk in there, there's 4 or 5, multiple students. How do you engage them differently, maybe than some other professors, to make that connection?
Every single one of them are individuals, and I think that's key. Every program I do, I see individuals. Whether I have 16 students in a program at Wernley, or whether I have 25 at Richmond High School, or 85 in my classroom right here on campus, I treat every single one of them individually. I get to know them, and I listen to them. And if they say technology, I start showing them what I have. If they say arts, I start showing them what we have. I try to introduce them to a resource, wherever that is. And believe me, every single one of us has those resources to help somebody if we're listening to them, and let them all be individuals and help them with those resources. That's been the key to my success. And I have quite a following, and you're correct. My office is always full of students, and our average class size is 20, and mine is 80. But there's a reason, and that's because I do pay attention to the individual.
there was a tone in your voice as you talked about
Passion? Is it
passion? Yes.
Passion?
As you talked about
The flash.
the need for people to re-engage just then, and I felt like you feel like there's something that's truly not being done, or there's a next step that you see that we need to consider taking. Am I misreading that?
No, I think, this is the work we do, right? And my commitment, I made a commitment to this work, right? This is a mission for me. This is not a job it's a mission. Mm-hmm. My background is law, and I don't really need to be in this field, right? It's a mission and a movement that I have, but it's to save lives, right? To save lives of children that have the ability to be what we want to be, but they don't have the resources that we have. Mm-hmm. So what are we going to do about that? If they don't have the resources, do we throw them away, or do we put resources around them? So when I was growing up in New Jersey, there was a community center. Boys good. That's the only reason why probably I'm not one of them. Something kept me out of trouble, but also there were teachers that pushed me academically. Mm-hmm. They said, hey man, if you want to go to this school, they're going to require you to have a good SAT score, right? And so those things were important, and we have all these 20,000 channels on the TV where that's where we spend all our time now, or Xboxes, right? We were outside, we played, we shot, we had a community. It seems like today we are so preoccupied financially with what's happening, and we're not thinking about a movement that needs to occur in this community, but even in the nation. And you see it happen every day. It's even with politics, they're talking about decreasing Medicaid by $3 billion. What that means is kids, disabled people that need those dollars for survival may not have it. So what happens? What happens to the challenges that we all are facing and trying to grow the next generation, and you're taking more resources away, right? So that's all. I'm just recognizing there's a major challenge going on in our country, and it's happening in our community, and someone's going to have to, mayors, governors, congressmen's going to have to step up and say, we're going to commit to at least saving the next generation, or we're going to be in a very difficult position as we see our next generation coming before us, and how they're going to survive.
Okay, that's probably a strong message to end on, so I'm going to go there and say thank you very much. Daryl Gordon, President and CEO of Wernley Youth and Family Treatment Center, I appreciate you being here. Hopefully you can come back and we can bring some more people around the table and expand that conversation.
Hey, I would love to.
Rob Tidrow, Richmond Community Schools, Tim Scales with Indiana University East. I appreciate you all spending some time with us here this evening on In Focus. We are going to talk about some chamber activities. They have their farm tour coming up, and Melissa Vance from the Wayne County Area Chamber is here, and she'll be with us as we continue with In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Life can sometimes be chaotic, and with small children, it can be difficult to get to the doctor.
Hi, Mrs. Downs. How are you doing?
I have a sick little boy right here. I think he might have an ear infection.
With Read Health Now virtual visits, you don't even need to leave your home.
I'll send in a prescription for him.
Quick, easy, convenient.
I don't want to take the kids out today.
Oh, hey, Doc.
Read Health, right beside you, right now.
Hi, I'm Aaron Stevens, host of the Cuffs program, WGTV Channel 11. Stay tuned as Jim Harlan, Executive Director of the Wayne County Historical Museum, is our guest.
Approaching one collection at a time.
Again, that's the Cuffs program, WGTV Channel 11, 6 p.m. Wednesday evening.
Vance at the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to invite you to join me for our next episode of Chamber Chat. We will be talking to our friends at Bell's Strawberry Farm and learning all about the farm tour, and then also heading out to Forest Park Health Campus and learning about some great things going on there. You won't want to miss it. Join me Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m.
And welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. Switching gears, we are joined by Melissa Van. Normally you're in this chair.
I know, it feels so great to be on this side for a change.
Melissa is with the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, as you just saw from the promo in between segments, host of Chamber Chat. How's that show going for you?
It's really great. We are enjoying it, and it's been fun to be out of the studio on location for the last few episodes.
I was going to say, on the road.
Yeah, it's nice to get out in the community and give a glimpse of what's going on, literally.
Nice.
For a change. So
the show that's coming up, the one that was promoted actually just there, is for, and nobody's seen it yet, but it's for the farm tour.
Right.
Which was restarted three years ago? Okay.
This will be the third year. The first year it was back was we went to the Bowman Farm out in Greens Fork, and you know, we didn't know how many people would show up, so we just kind of played it by ear. We had 150 people in the pouring down rain.
Wow.
I thought, oh, it's raining, nobody's coming, but they came and they didn't want to leave, so it was great.
Nice.
And then last year we were at Gullier Farms over in Dublin, and again, kind of pushed the limits. We were at 200 last year.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that many.
We are definitely cutting off at 200 this year. We will not be growing any larger.
Oh, come on.
You know, it's something that you want to kind of contain because you want people to have the best experience and to be able to, you know, have that hands-on opportunity when they arrive. So
when is it this year?
July 25th. Okay. And it's 6 o'clock in the evening at Bell's Strawberry Farm over in Hagerstown.
Nice.
So we're kind of hitting various areas of the county. But they are excited to host, and we'll be providing transportation from Warm Glow Candle Company for those that are on this side of the county, and then from Hagerstown Elementary. So people can park and ride, not have to worry about navigating parking on the farm, which is very limited. So.
Okay. This is a ticketed event. If they want information or they need to register, obviously, for this ahead of time, there is an RSVP. How do they get that information?
Well, definitely RSVP. We need to know for sure, and WCAreachamber.org is our website, and there'll be a link. Tickets go on sale Saturday, July 1st, until they run out, so I recommend getting them early. Dinner will be provided that evening by Willie and Red's, so it's going to be fantastic.
Now, some people would say, as rural as Wayne County is, having farm tours and helping people understand agriculture would make sense, but it did wane for a little while, but it's coming back, and the Chamber has an Agri-Business Committee now.
We do.
What are they doing, and how did that get started or restart?
Well, the whole idea is the amount of agribusiness that we have in Wayne County is enormous. And for a long time, I think people didn't really credit those in that industry the credit that they deserved for really operating $1 million businesses. There aren't very many of those outside of that sector in our county. And so really looking at those as viable businesses, and then looking at how they integrate modern technology in what they're doing, it's amazing. It's really amazing to me.
Great. So that's a group that's working hard and has been credited with a number of things. The Chamber has gotten involved in the rural urban banquet that's been taking place over the last couple of years, which has been a very successful event also.
And it's also been fun to get to know the FFA groups in the various school systems. Last year, the Lincoln FFA students helped us at the farm tour, but they also help us with tear down after the annual dinner. We go over there for some of their events, and now we're partnering with the FFA group in Hagerstown.
Nice.
So it's really nice to get them involved in the business industry in the area and get them a little exposure, and then also give us an opportunity to have a glimpse at what they do.
Okay. The Wayne County Weekends, we're down to our last couple of minutes, but the Wayne County Weekends is an initiative that has been going on this summer, last month, this coming month, July, and then it will even swing into August. It's been, I think, pretty successful to this point.
It really has. You know, it's taken a little bit to get the inertia going in the right direction, but being in...
It was a party in Centerville last week, I hear.
Oh my goodness. It was a lot of fun. There were a lot of people there. Every weekend, a different community. Richmond, downtown, and Depot District the first weekend of the month. Second weekend is Cambridge City. Third weekend is Hagerstown. Fourth weekend, Centerville. And then in August, on the 5th Thursday, we're going to head up to Fountain City for a special family night out there. So yeah, something different every week, and it's just fun to make some time and spend time in the various areas, and hopefully encouraging people to not leave Wayne County on the weekends to go do something. There really is something to do here every weekend. And then encouraging the people that are coming in to keep coming back.
The Wednesdays in the park have always also been, I think, fairly successful. There's some music downtown in Jack Elstro Plaza on Wednesdays.
Right. The Parks Department's doing a really great job of keeping that going. We worked with them to kick it off with Wellness Week and had some activities, but they kept that going, and like you said, music every Wednesday from 11:30 to 1 at Jack Elstro Plaza. Sometimes there's other things going on, but just to walk down there, have lunch, see the kids playing, listen to some music. It's a nice little break, and it's only a block from my office, so I love it.
Nice. Where is Chamber Chat going next?
We will be... Hopefully. I'm trying to think which episode we're doing next. I think we are going to be looking forward toward our Community Improvement Awards, visiting one of the sites that was a winner last year, and then maybe spending some time in Centerville.
Okay, on the road. Chamber Chats Tuesday nights on WETV, part of our business block, which also includes Tim Scales' show In Your Business, as well as Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick and White House Chronicle. So check that out on WETV Channel 20. Taking a couple of weeks off, obviously the 4th of July coming up, we're going to rerun one of Eric Van Vliet's special shows featuring Steve Helmick and Abe Tawfiq, the new RHS football coach. If you missed any of these interviews, check it out on our video on demand site, WGTV Online, or during those replay times. We'll be back with a live interview on July 20th as we speak with Valerie Schaefer from the EDC. Have a safe 4th of July. Thanks for watching.
This broadcast of In Focus has been made possible through the support of Reed Help. Reed Help, right beside you.
I am Rachel Hughes, co-host of The Third Sector. Join me this month. My guests are Susan Isaacs and Becky Studebaker. The Third Sector airs Thursdays at 8:30 on WETV Channel 20.
You are watching Whitewater Government Television, Channel 11.